Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Shymanski. Here's a bit of news for you. AMI Audiobook Review is heading into a new era as of September. We're changing the name to Audiobook Cafe. Moving forward, I'll be putting a particular focus on the latest audiobook releases and literary news with in-depth conversations with authors, narrators, and industry experts. Really just putting a focus on the here and now. And as we wrap up this chapter of the show, I thought this would be a good time to do a sort of best of for some of my favorite conversations I've had on here in the past year. Starting with super prolific Canadian narrator Vikas Adams, who shared some really interesting insight on his studio process. Listen to this. How do you structure your sessions when you're actually sitting down in the booth?
Mm-hmm.
Do you how long are you sitting in there? Do you take breaks?
I do take breaks, but I try not to. I try and go as long as I can. And usually the way it works is it takes me forever to get going, especially on the first day of a book. I get scared. Even
after the 500th book?
After. And I used to berate myself about it. And I realized, no, that's human and it's wonderful and it's good because it means that I want to do my best. And so it was a matter of interpreting the fear not as something bad, but as something human. And so there's always that fear sometimes of going into the booth for the first time with a new book, because I'm like, oh, am I going to do it justice? Ooh, can I have to, it's a new project. So it's going to take a sec to get acclimated to the world. And that it's like jumping into the pool, I think. No matter how many times you do it, the first time you jump into that pool, there's always going to be that splash of that temperature change for people who do whether they're swimming or whether they do cold plunges. No matter how many times they do cold plunges, and don't get me started, I don't understand people who do cold plunges. I'm never going to do it. But
you're Canadian, come on.
Yeah, stepping out is a cold plunge. And there's a reason I live in LA. But even those who do cold plunges, no matter how many times they do it, there's still that shock to the system. And I think that's what doing a new book is like for me.
You know, creatives and artists often talk about the flow state, where when you're being productive, you get to this point where you just don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And that sounds like exactly what happens with you after you get going with the book. You've figured out your flow, and now you just want to keep going because you don't want to interrupt it, because it takes a while to ramp up to it. And that's what that first chapter is, right? It's the ramp up.
Yeah. And what I will often do is before I even start, I will read out a few of the pages aloud before I even start recording, just to get kind of like a part of a warm up, to get into the flow of things. And it's not to get my tongue and my brain in connection with each other. And they're like, okay, are you all working together as a good machine here? It's like, okay, you're passing the ball to each other here, from the page to the brain to the mouth. Is it all working? Is it flowing? Especially with this particular language that we have.
This is such a little detail in the process. Do you use punch recording, or do you have somebody edit different takes together?
All I will do. It depends on what is asked for by the producer. Certain ones, they will want a free roll, which is just running, and then someone else is taking notes as to where that all happens. That's my favorite, because one of my favorites, actually. I like them both, actually, for different reasons, but I really like that because then I'm not worried about anything. Oftentimes I will have an engineer because for punch rolls, because I really don't want my that state interrupted.
Just for the people who don't know, can
Oh
you explain
yes,
what free roll and punch roll is?
yes.
Hmm.
A free roll is when you push record, and it is just continuing to record,
Hmm.
mistakes and all. Everything is there, and there are numerous ways of being able to uh, uh, designate where the mistake is for the editor. You can either do a clap or a snap, or there'll be a clicker, or a director will keep a time code based on where you are. That's one way. Punch and roll, which is the most common, is you make a mistake, you stop, you go back to where you made a mistake, and then you punch back in over there. And so for that, it can just be a lot more for the editor. It can just be a lot more economical time wise when it comes to the editing process.
It's like editing on the fly, basically.
Yes, and then when it goes to post after that, they're still doing some additional edits and making sure that everything is clean and running soundly and everything like that. But for that, I usually have an engineer punching me in because I don't want to be. I don't want to stop. Um,
It sounds annoying to have to stop that often.
It can be, but once again, sometimes the more you do it, and once again, based on the connection to the text and how, um, whether there's that wonderful connection that the two of you may have, it can flow, and I can end up going for a while.
A lot of musicians, they like to work with the same engineers because they get into that flow state, like collaboratively. Is that what
Mm-hmm.
happens with you? Do you often use the same
I
engineers?
have a few engineers that I do like to work with. Same with directors, but at the same time, I will request. You know what? Let's go with someone different here. Let's challenge me. I don't want to get too comfortable.
Okay, now that we're really getting into the details, I'm being indulgent here. What do you drink like when you're recording? You have a cup of tea or just water?
What do I not
Some people
have?
have some pretty. What do you not
What
have?
do I
Some
not
people have
have?
some pretty wacky takes.
What do I not have in there? Um, Always definitely water, and there's always going to be tea. The tea can vary from throat coat to uh, some sort of herbal tea.
Throat coat?
Throat coat. Oh, you haven't heard of throat coat?
No, what's throat coat?
Throat coat is a type of tea. It's a slippery elm. It's a slippery elm tea, and it feels like butter going down your throat, and it just it's got an interesting. I think it's a pleasant taste, but sometimes once again it varies. It's like, but I think it's very important to have a room temperature or a warm hot liquid for me. I will have that in there depending on the day, depending on where I'm at. I actually may have black coffee in there. Uh,
Oh, usually that's a no-no for
yeah,
voice actors. It
what,
dries you out, or
yeah,
you're a rebel.
but that's why. But that once again, it's like every actor, your instrument is different. It's going to be different on a certain day. You've got to know where you're at. And there are certain days where
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to have any black coffee right now because I know it will affect the sound of my voice. It will affect my ability. But there are certain days where I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty confident right now, and I could use the black coffee, and the sound is good.
That was an excerpt with my conversation. That sorry. That was an excerpt from a conversation with narrator Vikas Adam. The next clip was from back when regular contributor Danielle McLaughlin came on the show and put me onto poetry. We take turns reading bad poetry. Check it out.
In honor of bad poetry, I have to mention the man who is acknowledged as the worst poet in the English language.
What an accolade.
Isn't that, yeah? He a wonderful a Scottish poet called William McGonagall, and I have to say that there's very little poetry quite as bad as his. In fact, he never stopped performing his poetry. He believed that it had to be recited out loud, and people hated it so much that they threw vegetables at him when he was reciting his poetry. So he would typically show up at his readings with an umbrella because he knew that those
Came
rotten
prepared.
yeah,
He
he
was
came prepared.
self-aware.
Oh, well, no, I don't think he was self-aware enough. If he
Well, if he
were,
brought the umbrella,
yeah,
he knew he
yeah,
was going to get
he knew he
vegetables
was
hurled
going to
at him.
get pelted, but it didn't
Yeah.
stop him. Oh, God. So I'm very tempted here to read a poem of his that I find excruciating, and
We
it
would
is.
love to hear
Would you
it.
like that? Okay. It
Yes.
is called Robert Burns. Now, as you may know, Robert Burns is considered the best poet in Scotland, at least at that time. And so he wrote an ode to Robert Burns, which Robert Burns probably would have burned if he'd had a chance. Okay. Immortal Robert Burns of Ayr, there's but few poets can with you compare. Some of your poems and songs are very fine. To marry in heaven is most sublime. And then again, in your cotter's Saturday night, your genius there does shine most bright, as pure as the dewdrops of night. Your Tam O'Shanter is very fine, both funny, racy, and divine. From John o' Groats to Dumfries, all critics consider it to be a masterpiece. And also, you have said the same, therefore they are not to blame. And in my own opinion, both you and they are right, for your genius there does sparkle bright, which I most solemnly declare to thee, immortal bard of air. Your banks and braes of bonny Doon is sweet and melodious in its tune, and the poetry is moral and sublime, and in my opinion, nothing can be more fine. Your Scots, wha hae we Wallace bled, is most beautiful to hear sung or read, for your genius there does shine as bright, like unto the stars of night. Immortal bard of air, I must conclude my muse to speak in praise of thee does not refuse, for you were a mighty poet, few could with you compare, and also an honor to Scotland, for your genius it is rare. Can you beat it? I mean, ta-dum, ta-dum, ta-dum,
How
ta-dum.
often does he use the word genius?
Yeah,
It,
no kidding, right? Or fine repeatedly. And there's really, he will just stretch a sentence out until he grabs a rhyme out of nowhere, and it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense.
and you,
Oh my
and
God.
there's some like similes that just don't really
That
work in the
doesn't work.
context. Like your
No.
genius shines bright.
Yeah,
What
no.
do you
Yeah,
mean?
and for your genius, it is rare. I mean, oh, I love the way he lists uh, Burns's poetry. The first two paragraphs just simply list the poems. It's like, oh, come on.
I
Anyway,
think part of this is that he wrote a poem. It was the topic of the poem that seems very unpoetic in the first place.
oh,
Right? And it's a
totally.
weird thing to write a poem about in the first place. Just write a listicle. Like you
Yeah,
don't just write an
yeah.
article. Don't write a poem. What are you doing?
Oh,
You-
well, I don't, yeah, nothing stopped this man. He really, he kept at it. And I think people really enjoyed the fact that they knew it was going to be horrible. They came armed with vegetables. And yeah,
you know, it was a spectacle. It was
it
like the
was a
Minecraft
spectacle.
movie,
Oh,
just in 1880. He William McGonagall had another poem that I thought was really funny. I looked up what is his most infamous poem
oh,
because
is it
this is the
about
one
the
that came
coup?
up. It is the Taybridge disaster
Oh
from
gosh, are you
1880.
going to read it?
I will going to read a portion of it. It's
Okay,
quite long and bad.
it's
Um,
terrifying.
so the Taybridge disaster was a bridge for trains, and it collapsed during a stormy night while a train was over it, and it led to a huge loss of life. And this poem was a lament for that event, and people thought it was quite gauche and unpoetic and kind of emotionally off. You'll see what I
Hmm.
mean. It was
Okay.
just a bit off-putting for the context, right? Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay. Alas, I am very sorry to say that 90 lives had been taken away on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. 'Twas about 7 o'clock at night, and the wind it blew with all its might, and the rain came pouring down, and the dark clouds seemed to frown, and the demon of the air seemed to say, I'll blow down the bridge of Tay. So that's like the first
Oh.
quarter. Here are the last couple lines. These are the worst ones. Oh, Faded bridge of the silvery tay, I must now conclude my lay by telling the world fearlessly, without the least dismay, that your sensual girders would not have given away. At least many sensible men do say, had they been supported on each side with buttresses. At least many sensible men do say, for the stronger we our houses do build. That's actually how it's written. The less chance we have of being killed.
Oh, it's painful.
For my final clip, I wanted to share a conversation I had with Ramya Amathan where we shared our reactions to Audible's announcement from earlier this year where they said they would allow certain publishers access to their AI creation tools. Check it out.
Okay.
So the Guardian had a really good article about this whole situation called Audible Unveils Plans to Unveil AI Voices to Narrate Audiobooks. And it cited a few narrators and authors and their thoughts on this. Kristen Atherton, who's a narrator, she has over 400 titles on Audible right now. She makes a really good point here. She says, human narrators actively sell audio content by being good at their jobs.
Yep.
That's the selling point, right? For audiobooks, for a lot of people. We get a lot of comments on the show of people saying, like, I will listen to anything by this narrator.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's not just a book in a different format. It's its own art form, and people buy it because of that. If Audible and Spotify are replacing books that would have otherwise been done by human narrators, you could argue that's kind of a bad business move.
Yeah.
Because they're ridding themselves of the opportunity to sell that art form, to sell the art form of narration.
The easy crushing point here is, though, like the counterpoint to that is now with tech like 11 Labs that a lot of people might be familiar with, you could just take a sample of someone's voice and make it into whatever you want. You know, now you got your favorite voice narrating X, Y, and Z, everything on the planet. So again, we come back to the ethics of the conversation, but the actual credit doesn't necessarily need to go to people anymore. And we got to start thinking of like the quality of an AI voice. Is it going to match the human voice? And you mentioned The Guardian. I was reading a piece on Tech Radar, another article. It's titled, Audible's AI narration sounds impressive, but I'd rather hear the story told by a human. And this is the part I wanted to read to you, okay? Good enough shouldn't be the standard for art. And
Facts.
audiobooks are certainly an art form. Great narration adds depth, color, rhythm, and even the meaning to a text. It transforms reading aloud a text on a page that you can hear to a real performance. Even if AI gets close in a technical sense, and I've heard AI audio that matches human performance for at least a few minutes, we'll still know the difference. Human narration has nuance because it has context. The narrator understands not just the definition of the words that they're reading, but the emotion and history behind it. They know the difference between a sigh of relief and a sigh of resignation. It goes on to say things like AI can approximate it, but only for a limited amount of time. It's like teaching a dog how to close its eyes, but doesn't mean the dog's embarrassed. You know, like these kind of touchy-feely things that you don't really get to understand, but you know that you're, for example, getting exhausted from reading listening to an AI book for 3 hours.
Humans are complex communicators. We talk, you know, you can pick up the slightest implications through very subtle word choices.
Yes.
Think of body language or facial expressions. They can differ like down to the millimeter. And they're incredibly complex, right? And it's the same thing, I'd argue, with tone of voice and narration. Like humans are, just like in those other forms of communication, extremely tuned to vocal subtleties.
Yes.
Things like sarcasm and arrogance and cheekiness and resignment. These are all emotions that you can grasp just on tone of voice, not even considering the words that are being spoken. And it's not just emotions either. It's like actions as well, the physicality, the meaning of it, right? Like exertion and concentration or being distracted. You could even surmise if somebody is lying or telling the truth based on the tone of voice.
Exactly.
Those are all subtleties that we have been picking up on since the day we were born.
Yeah. And
Humans
we're
are extremely
describing
complex communicators, and AI will never live up to that. I'm
No.
confident of that. Because you have to have like a soul. You have to have
Exactly.
human faults, and computers, AI are just computers.
And I
It's
think there's a
you need that
lot of
human
us who
element.
reject that. Like we reject the thought of soullessness or like the computer doing this. It's not just about the production quality and how well this thing can mimic what we do, but there's this part of us that, to be honest, I'm thinking like I'm waiting for it to screw up, or I'm waiting for this to feel like a
Yes.
non-human experience, right? Because we're very forgiving. Like if we're having conversations with people, we're very forgiving of I don't know, people's stilted performances, or it's a bad narration, but it's still human, right? Whereas if like, I think we're just less forgiving if it's a computer.
Why do we need to lower the bar? Right? This is the enshittification of everything. That because we're willing to, basically the baseline of quality is going to be what AI sets it at, right? And I'll be the first one to say that some AI narration is better than human narration.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
even like a 6 out of 10 human narration is better than an AI narration any day. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but what is the better, right? That's what you're asking. Like, is it better because it's human?
It's better because it's human. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the ethics and the moral. And maybe part of that is just like the fear we have of this technology, and to be honest, the fear is very legitimate, right? Like, where are the people who are getting paid? This is their livelihood. Where are they going to go? What's going to happen with credit and rights, and who owns this, who owns that when it starts becoming AI? Is it better because it's easier and more efficient and more accessible, or are we losing touch with something bigger here?
Yeah, that makes me wonder how many listeners will really feel icky for listening to an AI narrated audiobook. Like how many people really have their scruples questioned
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
they're listening to an AI narration. If it's like good enough for them, then I don't think they care that people lost their jobs. It's so disconnected. You don't see the person who would have gotten that human narration gig in the first place struggling. Like it's so disconnected. It's why
Yeah.
it's just sad. Like on principle, I
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
this you and the
Yeah.
decision needs to be made from the marketplace, from us audiobook listeners, if we're going to buy into this. These next few years are going to be so important.
And I honestly, there's a part of me that thinks we're mad about it now, or we're skeptical because, of course, right? Like, it's exponentially growing. It's unprecedented, and we're worried. Like, we're worried, we're fearful, all the above. We're also excited, obviously. But there's a lot to complain about, and there's a lot to question right now. But when it becomes available, so fast forward a year, this is a normal thing now. AI narration is everywhere. All the big publishers have made their moves, and we're in it. We're in the thick of it. Do you think we're having the same level of conversation about the ethics and the moral and the principle? I doubt it, because it's like any other technology or technological outburst, and growth that happens, right? Like, that first little unlock is always the scariest.
That was a conversation I had with Ramya Amuthan earlier this year, where we agonized over what the future might hold with regards to AI narration. And it's funny because we had that conversation, I think this was in midsummer, and in August and September, we've heard some interesting news coming out of Audible that's made it clear that their plan for the future is to turn their platform into more of a streaming platform. And they're increasingly becoming open to AI flooding it. And it's becoming clear to narrators and just the audiobook industry as a whole, but especially the narrators, the human ones, that Audible is embracing AI narration. And it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. And we did not have that information when we had that conversation with Ramya. The conversation we were really having was about whether AI narration is good enough. But that's not really relevant to Audible, clearly. We'll see where that goes. And with that, we'll see. And with that, that's it for today's show. AMI Audiobook Review will transition into Audiobook Cafe as of September. Our podcasting feed will continue. We just won't be on YouTube. Thank you to all of our past guests and every single contributor that's been on the show. You are what makes this show what it is. The show will airs on weekends and Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio. I'm Jacob Shymanski. Thanks for listening. You'll hear from me soon.